Big game this weekend. It's Ohio State hosting Indiana. Fox Sports will be there. Big noon kickoff. The top 5 matchup in Columbus. And Joel Klatt will be on the call with Gus Johnson, Jenny Taft, and Joel joins us on the program. If I would have said before the season started, Indiana has a chance to beat Ohio State and Michigan in the same season, you would have said what?
I would have thought you were crazy. When the schedule came out, Indiana was an afterthought, not just because of them changing a coach and the fact that they hadn't had any history of success. But when you looked at it, they faced both teams that played for a national championship last year, Washington and Michigan, and they had Ohio State. So this has been quite remarkable. But it's also, I think, part and parcel to what the transformation of college football has provided, Dan. There is upward mobility, and now there is an avenue for teams that have been in the middle or even the bottom of college football to compete. And to me, I think that is a great thing. What Indiana is doing and Colorado is doing and others, Arizona State is doing, is good for college football, and in particular playing games that have real meaningful implications towards the college football playoff.
Yeah, because it used to be back in the 70s and the 80s, you just stockpiled all your talent. You look back at, like, the U had all of those running backs just waiting for a chance. That would never happen today. You'd be like, you're getting there, Willis McGahee starting, I'm gone. Yeah. And that's what I think college football has benefited, because the kids are saying, I can go where I can play right away, and maybe I don't want to stay there the whole time. I can go there, make a name for myself. I can be Jaden Daniels at ASU, and then I could go to LSU and get a big payday here. So I think that's why we have maybe not great teams, but I think we have some good, really good teams in college football.
Yeah, so I think if you're asking me, like, what's the biggest difference from 5 and 6 years ago, right? Kind of the height of the 4-team playoff. I would have said that the stockpiling was still going on then, because those teams had essentially a monopoly on the national championship. They could go into a living room. Nick Saban and Kirby Smart and Dabo Swinney and Urban Meyer and then Ryan Day could go into a living room, and then they could say, listen, if you want to compete for a national championship, you have to come to our place, because nobody else could really compete at that time. It was such a perpetual circle of the rich getting richer and the good teams getting the best players and then playing soft non-conference schedules and then going back to the playoff and then getting the benefit of the doubt. Those teams didn't even have to win their division to get included into the 4-team playoff. But now it's very different. So the top of college football, I believe, has come down a little bit because they can't stockpile like we're talking about. And then the middle of college football has risen. And so that just small shift has created the parity where now we're looking at this and 15 to 20 teams have a path to the college football playoff. And I think 8 teams actually have a legitimate shot to win the national championship. All of that is good because the fan bases are more engaged, more fan bases, more engaged at the top level.
Give me those 8 teams that can win the national title.
Yeah, I mean, I might be stretching it with 8 because, someone might scoff at like a Penn State or Notre Dame, or maybe even Indiana, and we'll see this week on Saturday against Ohio State. But Oregon is clearly in that class. Ohio State is clearly in that class. And then you've got all of the SEC teams, because they've proven that any one of those teams can beat the other on any given day. They've all beaten each other. So Georgia and Texas and Alabama and Ole Miss and Tennessee and maybe even Texas A&M. There is a number of teams. I think that the team that I have question marks about that I know can play incredible offensive football is Miami. I'm just interested to see, like, what could they do in a shootout? Now, do I think that they would win 4 games or even 3 games in a playoff? Probably not, because of the defense and the issues that they have on defense. But boy, would I love to see Cam Ward go out there and sling it against some of the top defenses in the country.
Do you believe in Penn State?
It's a great question. I think Penn State is exactly what they have been for the last few years. And until they prove otherwise, I guess like the onus is on them. They've got to prove to me that they're different than what they have been. And here's what they have been: an elite program that cannot beat top level teams in the sport. They couldn't beat Michigan and Ohio State the last couple of years. They've had one shot this year, and they weren't able to do it. They have played really well in other games this year, but the top end is interesting to me. I said before the year, Dan, that I thought that James Franklin, in order to have a successful season, or in order to define Penn State's season as successful, that they had to win a playoff game. And the reason is, and this goes back to what they have been over the last couple of years, if you go back and retroactively place a 12-team model over the 4-team model, you'll see that the team that was left out the most was Penn State. They would have made 6 playoffs if it was a 12-team model and not a 4-team model, because they were perpetually right in that 6 to 10 range. Well, their average rank in all those years was about 9. So what are they really in terms of a difference from what they have been? Nothing, unless they can prove that they can get into that, Final 4, Final 8, whatever it is. So to me, the proof is going to be if Penn State can actually win a playoff game.
Talking to Joel Klatt, Fox Sports lead college football analyst. He'll be on the call with Gus Johnson, Jenny Taft for the big noon kickoff matchup in Columbus between Indiana and Ohio State. I think it gets tricky when you see the rankings, but then you also see the playoff format, and then you're going to see Boise State. And then they get a bye. Just like BYU, now it's Boise State. I think that's where people are like, wait a minute. Now they're kind of realizing how this is set up. It's not just, hey, you're in the top 12, you make the playoffs. It's where are you in your conference? And that's where I think there's going to be some pushback on this of why is Boise State getting a first-round bye in Texas and Alabama and Georgia aren't.
Yeah, okay. So you're right. I think that people actually seeing right now, it's almost like we're kind of getting the product and we're thinking to ourselves like, wait, hold on. I want to know how that is made. So here's how it works. The highest ranked 5 conference champions, regardless of conference, get into the playoff. Then you go at large from that point on, and the at-large teams are then the highest-ranked teams from that point forth until you get to 12. Now, the 4 byes have to go to conference champions, regardless of actual rank. So that means that the highest-ranked 4 champions get the 4 byes and those top 4 seeds. That's why you see projections with like a Miami in there with a bye and a BYU in there with a bye, or even some with Colorado with a bye if they were to win the Big 12. So I think it's fascinating to me. I don't think it's a model that's going to last very long. By 26, I do believe that we're going to get a little bit different structure to this playoff, and it's probably going to enhance the regular season and expand the playoff, not quite to 16. Then we're going to get a 14-team model, and it'll be only 2 byes, just like the NFL. And the only 2 byes are going to go specifically to the SEC and the Big Ten champ.
You have the Heisman Trophy, and it feels like every year we wait for the Heisman moment. I haven't seen the Heisman moment from Travis Hunter or Ashton Jeanty with Boise State. I don't know if we're going to get that. Travis Hunter probably has a better chance to have that moment where the nation sees that. But are those the only 2 candidates for the Heisman now?
The odds makers sure seem that way. It's such a fascinating deal. I think that Ashton Jeanty is having the best season in college football. And yet, I also believe we're never going to see a season like Travis Hunter is putting together. So, like, how do you match those 2 things up? Because, Jeanty is doing things that, from a production standpoint, we haven't seen since Melvin Gordon and since, Barry in a lot of ways in terms of the production from a yards standpoint and a yards per carry standpoint. But Hunter's doing things that we've never seen before, period. To me, Hunter is going to get the Shohei Ohtani effect, which is just like, this is a total unicorn. There's no way to actually measure it. And so Heisman moment, do we need it when he's going to play 1,400 snaps? Maybe not. And then you look at like last week against Utah, we're showcasing that game on Big Noon Saturday. and he's got the pick, and then the fourth down play that he goes way up, over the defensive backs, he's going to have an opportunity for the Heisman moment. Ginty probably is not because of the conference and stages that he's going to play on. So Ginty's going to have to rely on pure production, while Hunter is going to have some moment, I firmly believe, whether it's this week against Kansas or ongoing maybe in the Big 12 championship game, where he can have that moment where the entire country is just like, that's it. That's what I wanted to see. And he'll win the trophy, which is what the odds makers are kind of betting on.
As a Colorado alum, how do you feel when you read that Michael Irvin is the one out front trying to get Deion to the Dallas Cowboys?
I mean, I was out front trying to get Deion at Colorado. So if Michael loves the Cowboys, like, I don't blame him, right? He's doing what he should do if he loves that organization.
Do you believe Deion when he says, "Hey, my kickstand's down, I'm staying here. I love it here. They got good recruits coming in because they're going to have to replace a couple of top 5 talents." But do you believe that if the Cowboy opportunity were there?
No, I don't know. I know what he's told me. He's never lied to me. I talked to him through the process of getting hired at Colorado. I was involved to some degree, and every conversation I've ever had with him has been incredibly authentic and honest. That's all I can go by. I asked him last Friday, "Do you want to go to the NFL?" And he looked at me and he said, "No." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because I don't feel like I would be fulfilling my calling and my purpose if I was there." And I asked him to expand on that. And he said, "Listen, my calling is to impact young men and be a mentor to young men. I happen to do that through coaching. And I feel like I can do that better at the college level than I could with a bunch of professionals that might listen to me and might not listen to me because of the amount of money that they're actually being paid." Now, like, take from that what you will. If Dallas makes him a great offer and his son is there, like, could he go? Yeah, of course he could go. Do I think that he desperately wants to? I don't think that that's the case. So if the opportunity arises, Dan, could he coach the Cowboys? Yes, and I think he would probably be really successful at it. I also know that he loves being at Colorado, and I won't be surprised at all if he stays there.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the end-all for him. I understand that. I understand what he's saying. He can be full Deion in college.
That's right.
Probably can't be full Deion in the NFL.
Well, and think about it too. Like, in college, and this is gonna forgive the language here, but or the description. You can be kind of a mini dictator as a head coach. Like, you are the top of the totem pole in college as the head coach. You're not in the NFL. You're third at best in terms of personnel and ownership and everything like that. And part of what's unique about Colorado, and I know this because of my involvement, is that Colorado kind of said, like, hey man, here are the keys. You can do whatever you want with the uniforms, with the traditions. Like this is your vehicle. So as much as Colorado was desperate for a guy like Deion Sanders, and Deion specifically, Deion needs a place like Colorado to be authentically himself, and so I think that what you're saying there's a lot of truth to that.
What do you think Florida State is thinking when they see the success that Deion is having?
I can't imagine. I really can't, because I know he was at least talked about when they were hiring Mike. And so to see this, listen, he was up and a finalist for the TCU job. And so, like, he has been in conversations with other programs, and Colorado was the first one to pull the trigger. What Florida State is dealing with right now is something that everyone's going to have to look at, even Deion, by the way, that if you're going to play in the portal, then there's a chance that the bottom can fall out. And we're seeing that with Florida State. They had a great year, and then the bottom falls out. They cannot move on. Like, I think it's 62 is the number, $1 million that they would have to spend to move on. That's, they're talking about trying to get out of their media rights deal. Like they can't do that, Dan. And what are they thinking? I think that they're probably viewing that as a missed opportunity.
Deion would probably like to be asked if he wants to coach Florida State and be able to say, no, you guys had your opportunity.
Yeah.
Knowing Deion, it'd be like, hey, you had your chance. I tried to tell you. No, now I'm staying here. Help me understand how Army can beat Notre Dame this weekend.
Ooh. Well, number one is their offense leads to great defense. The way that they control the football leads to the fact they're the number 2 scoring defense in the country. So they protect themselves. Now the issue is that I think Army, for the most part, is very difficult to prepare for. Every academy is, because of the unique nature with which they play the game. But Notre Dame plays both Navy and Army every year. So if you're looking at an opponent that might not be quite as surprised or might not have as much trouble preparing for Army, it would be Notre Dame. And the fact that Notre Dame is fine playing a physical, run-oriented style of game. They're not going to be they're not going to shy away from that style of game. I think it's going to be really difficult for Army to win this. You look at the way that Notre Dame threw the ball against Navy, the way that they controlled the game. I think they're built for this. I think Notre Dame wins and probably covers. It would be a major upset in my eyes if Army were to win this game.
Have fun in Columbus. Our best to Gus. Thanks for joining us as always, Joel.
Yeah, I always love it. Appreciate it, Dan. See you guys.
Joel Klatt, Fox Sports lead college football analyst, former Colorado quarterback, by the way. So Big Noon Kickoff will be there. Brady Quinn, who's part of Big Noon Kickoff, will join us coming up tomorrow.